Snow fell like the sky had forgotten its own name. The world was white and wordless, and only the sound of a lone horse broke the stillness. Elias Boone rode slow, his coat stiff with frost, his eyes tired from years of looking at nothing but the horizon. He was checking the fence line when he saw something dark against the snow, a small figure crumpled by the old cottonwood, half buried by the storm. At first he thought it was a coyote, but when he brushed away the ice, he saw a woman's face, pale, still, and almost gone. Her lashes were frozen, her lips cracked blue. He carried her back to his cabin, through wind that bit like glass. The fire hissed to life when he laid her by it. Steam rose from her dress as it thawed. Her name came out like a secret, barely a breath, Annie Harper. She said she'd come to marry Jed Row, the neighbor 2 miles north, but he'd taken one look at her, small and trembling, and turned her away. Said she wasn't what he ordered. Elias had no answer for that. He only looked at her, saw how thin she was, how her hands shook, and felt something move in him that he thought winter had already killed. When she woke, her eyes darted around the cabin like a trapped bird. "Where am I?" she whispered. "Safe," Elias said. She didn't believe him. Not yet. For the next few days, she said little. She sat by the fire, wrapped in his old quilt, staring at the window as if the world outside might open and take her home. But there was no home, only miles of snow and silence. Elias tried not to talk much. He wasn't used to company. But he caught himself glancing her way, making sure she drank the broth, that the woodpile stayed high, that the cabin felt less lonely. When she was strong enough, she said she'd leave. "I can find work in town. I don't want to be a burden." "The roads are gone," he said simply. "And the town's 20 miles. She stayed. They built their days out of small things, feeding the fire, mending the fence, boiling coffee that always came out too strong. Elias showed her how to split wood. Her hands trembled on the axe. "Never had to split nothing but bread," she said, half smiling. He stood behind her, guiding her grip. When she finally split a log clean, she looked at him with quiet pride. He nodded once. That night, when she thanked him for saving her, he only said, "You'd have done the same." But they both knew she wouldn't have had the strength to. By the time the storm broke, spring light had crept into the windows, soft and golden. Annie took a trip into town with him for supplies. Mrs. Goodwin, who ran the mercantile, stared hard. "So you're the one Jed Row sent away," she said, voice sharp as vinegar. Annie looked down, cheeks red. Later, Sheriff Callan Tate leaned against the post outside and called after Elias, "You be careful now, Boone. Folks talk when they see a man take in another man's woman." The words followed them home, carried on the wind. That night, Annie sat quiet at the table, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug. "They think I'm something dirty," she said softly. Elias stirred the fire, eyes fixed on the embers. "They thought that about my wife too, till she died. Then she was a saint." Annie looked at him, and for the first time, she smiled, a small, weary smile, but it stayed. The days stretched gentle after that. The snow melted into mud, and the land came alive again. Elias built her a small sewing table by the window. She patched his torn coat, humming a tune so soft it seemed afraid to exist. He'd never thought of music living in his home again, but now it did, in her voice, in the clinking of dishes, in the way she breathed when she slept. One evening, he found her standing near June's grave, his wife's. Annie was brushing snow off the wooden cross. "She must have been a good woman," she said. "She was," Elias replied. "And you," he stopped, the words catching. "You're still becoming one." They stood in silence, the wind threading between them like a prayer. She didn't cry. Neither did he. The world was too quiet for tears. But peace never stays long on the frontier. Jed Row came back with the thaw, his horse kicking up mud, his voice loud with liquor and anger. He slammed his fist against Elias's gate, shouting, "Where's my woman? I paid good money for her passage." Annie froze by the doorway, pale as the snow she'd once almost died in. Jed sneered, "You belong to me, girl. You were bought fair." Before Elias could speak, Annie stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but it cut clean through the air. "No, I'm not anyone's to buy." Jed's face twisted, and he moved toward her. Elias stepped between them, quiet but unyielding. "This land don't belong to men who trade hearts like cattle," he said. Jed swung first. The punch landed square, but Elias didn't fight back. He just looked at him, steady, unflinching, with a kind of mercy that broke more than any fist could. Jed stumbled, ashamed by what he saw in those eyes, and rode off into the dusk, swallowed by the same wind that had carried Annie here. When the gate closed, Annie stood trembling, her breath coming in short bursts. Elias touched her arm lightly. "You're safe now." She looked at him, tears trembling but not falling. "You gave me more than safety," she said. "You gave me back myself." He smiled, a small, tired smile. "Then I reckon we both got something out of this winter." She took his hand. "You can let go of the past now, Elias." He looked out toward the horizon where the last snow still clung to the peaks. "Maybe," he said softly, "it finally let go of me." Years later, the town still talked about that blizzard. Some said it was mercy that sent him out that night. Others said fate. But the old-timers, the ones who knew what loneliness can carve into a man's soul, said it plain. That storm didn't come to kill him. It came to show him who'd walk through it with him. Elias and Annie never married in church or wrote vows on paper. They built something quieter, steadier, a home made of small kindnesses, of silence that didn't hurt anymore. On evenings when the sun dipped low and the prairie turned gold, she'd hum while he carved by the window. Sometimes they'd laugh. Sometimes they'd just listen to the wind, to the fire, to the fragile peace that had finally found them. And when the night came, Elias would look out toward June's grave and whisper, "I kept my promise." Because love, he'd learned, doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means letting another heart heal beside yours until the world feels whole again. So if you ever find yourself in a storm, one of those that chills more than bone, remember this. Maybe the blizzard isn't there to break you. Maybe it's there to show you the one who'll stay when everyone else turns away. That was their story. A quiet legend buried beneath the snow, told in the flicker of lanterns and the hush of winter nights. This is Frontier Myths, where the Old West still breathes through tales of mercy, grit, and grace. If you felt something in this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment about what part stayed with you. And remember, sometimes, even in the coldest places, love still finds a way to warm the soul.